Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It is Monday, August 17th, 2020, and as usual, Monday will be the fullest of the discussions for the week, probably. A lot of tabs open today, a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it, shall we? All right, let's start off with where we are. Okay, this is a look at the anomalies. You know, this is one of the favorite maps of mine. Kind of gives us an idea of a starting point. Cool relative to average in the tropical Pacific. Warm relative to average throughout the tropical Atlantic, especially so up here in the subtropics. But let's look at this from a different perspective. From the great mind and coding expertise of Levi Cowan, tropicaltidbits.com, this area here, the Nino 3.4 region, where are we talking about? Right out here, roughly, in the tropical Pacific, right about this area through here. That's this region here. What's the average water temperature? We can look at that graphically here, at least from what we call the CDAS data. And it's been down, down, down for the most part at negative, very important here, negative 0.417. So let's just call it 0.41. Now, are you ready for this? On the flip side, this area right over here that we're going to look at, roughly 20 degrees west longitude, all the way over to about 85 degrees west longitude, roughly right through here. What's the average temperature through here? Well, it's obviously above average, but again, graphically, on a graph, this is what it looks like. And unbelievably, it's almost exactly the flip side on the positive, 0.416. That's pretty remarkable, you got to admit. The Nino 3.4, negative 0.417, positive 0.416. Wow. Moving on along into the Caribbean, a half a degree Celsius above the long-term average. And then finally the Gulf of Mexico, and this is just craziness. Very, very warm here at an astounding 0.83, almost a full degree Celsius above the long-term average. Now, what does any of this really matter? Why are anomalies important? And especially since we're only talking about a half a degree here, 0.8 of a degree there. Well, it's important, and I've talked about this before, that if you took my handy glass of water here, which is probably about 36 degrees Fahrenheit, and I warmed it up 2 degrees more to 38. I got it out of the refrigerator, so it's nice and cold. I really wouldn't notice a difference. And same thing with a bathtub. If you had a bath and you said, I want the water a half a degree Celsius warmer, you probably wouldn't notice. But what you don't understand is the amount of energy that it takes to raise the temperature in this glass of water to, that half a degree Celsius or 0.83, like the Gulf of Mexico is warm relative to average. That's a lot of energy, even for that little glass of water or your bathtub. Now think about an entire vast ocean basin that's normally one temperature, but now the temperature is a little warmer, right? A half a degree, whatever, or a little colder. And in the case of the Pacific here with the INSO regions that we talk about, all of this blue is energy removed because it's colder than average. And over here in the Atlantic, it's energy added because this water is warmer. And heat is energy. And this will have profound effects and impacts on global weather patterns, starting with, I don't necessarily say starting with, but certainly it's going to manifest itself in the hurricane season that is getting ready to really ramp up into high gear. So the Nino 3.4, negative. The main development region, positive. The Caribbean, positive. The Gulf of Mexico, positive in a big way. What does all this lead to? It leads to this. Great satellite animation here showing you the very marked uptick in activity in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. Here's Genevieve, Hurricane Genevieve. We're going to talk about that more in a moment. Then we have our systems here, 97L, and I don't know if it's officially labeled as 98L. If not, it will be. and then the remnants over here of Josephine, this trough and front that came off the continent here of North America. Kyle went on out, did not become a hurricane. I kind of speculated on Twitter, and with good reason, because some of these systems, when they move off and then they head out into the Atlantic, they do tend to become rapid intensifying hurricanes. We've seen that before. It's just in the case of Kyle, it wasn't meant to be. But don't worry, as if you're worried about it. The hurricane count, once we're all said and done, and this is probably all going to continue on into November, is going to be very high this year. I think we get 10 to 12 hurricanes total, and probably 5 or 6 major hurricanes. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And you're looking at, in that satellite animation, the seeds of what is to come. And I want you to understand, this is August 17th. All right? We're not in mid-September. We still have almost a full 2 weeks of August left. And we're getting ready to get 1, maybe 2 hurricanes, I do believe, and maybe 3 or 4 when it's all said and done. Because, and let me show you this. Get rid of me, get rid of the telestration. The Madden-Julian oscillation, and we're going to zoom in over here to Genevieve in just a minute. Where did I put it? Right there? Nope, right here. The Madden-Julian oscillation is still over here, at least according to the Euro, the ECMWF, in phase 8. And that favors the Western Hemisphere, sure, but the most favorable areas for Atlantic activity, looking back at history, are phases 2 and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Definitely, but more leaning to 2 and 3. We're not even there yet. All right, the Madden-Julian oscillation, that fancy term for this umbrella, if you will, of upward motion in the atmosphere to allow the air to spread out and be divergent in the upper levels of the atmosphere, about 200 millibars up, way high up in the atmosphere. Instead of sinking in suppressed sinking air also warms, and warm air typically does not, especially if it's dry and sinking, doesn't lead to convection. A favorable Madden-Julian oscillation, a very slow-moving, relatively slow-moving phenomenon in the atmosphere. This is the forecast here that I'm highlighting in blue. This is the envelope of the ensemble members. It's in 8 right now, just getting into phase 8, getting ready to amplify more into phases 1, 2, and 3. And yet, with all of that, we have this already. So imagine where it's going to go once it really becomes favorable. And I think Genevieve is a look at that, because this is going to be a major hurricane and affect, at least indirectly, the Baja, some of the outer bands here. Yeah, just lightly scraping up against the coast of Mexico there. Some risk of heavy rain, but the higher risk is going to be from surf, big waves, rip currents, and dangerous waves right along the immediate coast. So let's go ahead and zoom in here on Genevieve, or at least shift the focus over to the Western Pacific. It's interesting, some of this moisture, I think this is, was this Fausto? I can't even keep track of them all. Some of that moisture coming up. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, those are lightning flashes detected in and around the Bay Area of San Francisco. Amazing. You need the rain, really interesting severe weather. We've seen the fire tornado up there and some of those fires. Just crazy weather. And it's just the way it is. You know, we got more people out there with cameras. The weather never gets away from us. So, of course, if something crazy happens, we're going to document it. Now, if we keep having it over and over and over again, there might be something to the fact that maybe we're in a little bit of a climate crisis. But for now, I just chalk it up to, wow, that's unusual. I hope it's not a regular occurrence. Let's not get off topic, though. Interesting, too, watch the lightning down here with this system. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've completely lost track. And let's just fix that real quick, shall we? Because I don't like being off track. We know there's Genevieve there. But what else do we have in the Eastern Pacific? Let's see. That was Fausto. This is a yet-to-be-named system. There's Genevieve. Fausto. That's what I thought. All right, so I'm not completely off base here. That's the system yet to be named. What's this? I guess the leftovers of something. I don't know. Anyway, that's the leftovers of Fausto. Entirely too much going on. That moisture streaming up towards California. It'd be nice if Genevieve could come up here and not be real strong, and maybe get some moisture into the desert southwest where temperatures, as you saw in Death Valley yesterday, maybe 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow, that's amazing. But anyway, Genevieve here, moving parallel to the coast, going to approach the Baja and then kind of bend away. Let's go back to the National Hurricane Center track map regarding Genevieve to show you that real quick for our interest in Mexico. The wind will stay offshore, but again, some of that rough surf will make its way up here. And even some of those waves will get up the Gulf of California and give you some high waves there. This is forecast to become a major hurricane and then eventually die out. Maybe, just maybe, some of that moisture can get sloughed off up here across the Sonoran Desert, the Sonoran region of Mexico, I think it's called, into the desert southwest of the U.S., and bring some relief to your area from the heat. At least give you some rain, as long as there's not dry thunderstorms with lightning and not much rainfall. I have noticed that my glass of water has a crack in it, and it's leaking on my office table. There we go. All right, we cannot have a flood in the office. Not yet. Not from a leaky cup. All right. The rain could cause floods, and this brings me to my next map here. If it's not the cat, it's a leaky glass of water. That's bizarre that it has a crack in it. Anyway, precipitable water. There's Genevieve, very well defined. And what's really important about this, we can see our very active intertropical convergence zone through here. Our energy areas trying to curl up. There's 97 there. This is soon to be, if not already, 98. And those are just numbers that we give them in the pre-stages before they get developed, in case you didn't know. 90 through 99, and the letter L for Atlantic. But notice the lack of the blue shading. It's mostly up here in the higher latitudes. There's still some right there, but boy, in and around the vicinity of soon-to-be 98L, nope, not much dry air at all. The pattern is changing just like we thought it would, just like it does. It does not, listen, Mark Sudduth didn't figure this out on his own. I'm just learning from past experience, all right? And I'm showing you what I would do even if you weren't there. This is what I would look at. How's the precipitable water? This is what it looks like. Okay, naturally, every hurricane season, even the most suppressed seasons, the intertropical convergence zone lifts north. The moisture gets more to the north. The African dust begins to slacken off. You still get intrusions once in a while. And that overall Saharan air layer begins to really abate and lessen over time as we get to the end of August. And we're starting to see that here. And these very high precipitable water values are going to lead to the development, I think, of one system that goes through this way perhaps, and then another system that comes maybe north of the islands we're going to have to watch. 97, 98L, I'll just call it 98L for now, because by the time this gets online, it'll probably be 98L. All right, Vorticity signature. Genevieve, again, I'm glad they didn't put the cyclone logo or icon. Perfectly round, little lobe sticking off here, but otherwise, that. Now let me just zoom in on it because I love it when I get to really illustrate what I'm talking about. That is a round, very high intensity area of vorticity. The conservation of angular momentum. The way that the wind is trying to spiral in, it focuses that energy. There's a lot of math and physics there. We won't get into that. But that's what I look for, and there you go. Here's 97, some of the energy out here associated with 98, and this will go on into the Caribbean and try to develop, I think. This is eventually going to come together and develop and head towards the general vicinity of the islands. Not sure exactly where, but obviously exactly where makes a lot of difference to you folks that are tracking it. We already talked about Genevieve. Here's the tropical weather outlook. You know this already. I forgot these are just the JPEGs, so I can't mouse over them. High chance of this one. Again, this is 98. We'll call it right here. This is Invest Area 97 over here. And I do think that this will start to develop in this area. Kind of like Harvey in terms of later on development. I'm not saying it's going to, oh, Marcus, oh, no. No. Some of these develop later. They usually don't get going through this area right in here. And if they're not already a hurricane entering there, they usually wait till over here. It's just the way it goes. We've seen that time and again. It's not always the case, but usually. And again, the Madden-Julian oscillation, all of this with it in just phase 8. Look at where we have to go. And it should hang out here for a couple of weeks. And we still have several days until it even gets into those favorable areas. So keep all of that in mind. All right, now, model time. Let me preface this by saying we could look at models for hours, but we're not going to, because that can become boring and it's not very productive. What I'm going to try to do is first we're going to take a look at Genevieve and make sure we understand the potential impacts for our viewers in Mexico, the Baja, of course, included. And then we'll shift over to the Atlantic side and try to understand invest areas 97 and 98 and try to get an idea of the big picture, what to expect, when to expect it, and where to expect it. Very, very important. I can't tell you what's going to happen in your backyard unless there's a hurricane coming, and then I can put a camera in your backyard. That's a story for another day. I can at least tell you what's happening in your backyard. But we're trying. We're doing pretty good with the science now, with the forecasting and the modeling. So just keep all of that in mind as we go to this next segment of the discussion. All right, where are we looking? Well, this is the 850 millibar layer of the atmosphere. I like this layer because we can isolate the vorticity signature, which is very solid right there. That's Genevieve. That's Ex Fausto, whatever he's called. This is the other disturbance. But this is the area right here I want you to focus on for the Eastern Pacific. Let's put this into motion, frame by frame. 24 hours out right there, safely away from the Mexican coast. But then it approaches the Baja. So this will definitely bring some rain bands across Cabo San Lucas and vicinity. Very high surf will move in well ahead of this, so please keep that in mind. And some of those swells might make their way up here along to the coast, these south-facing beaches of California. So, my surfer viewers out there in Southern Cal, I say it like Southern Cal, honestly, this could be a big surf event, so keep your eyes out for that. That could be fun, absolutely, but it could also be dangerous if you're not aware of it. And you go down to the coast, you're visiting out there, and these huge swells are coming in, you take your kids out, and those breaking waves right along the beachfront, that can cause injury and even death if you're not careful. So don't lose sight of the impacts, okay? Please. This is a powerful hurricane. Now, I mean, a hurricane's a hurricane. It's going to get even more powerful in the Pacific. It will have impacts. And directly, hard to say. Indirectly, yes, definitely. So real close to the Baja, scoots along there. And like I said, doubtful, but maybe some of this moisture can get worked up into the desert southwest. That would be cool to see. Even if I'm not out there, I love the monsoon and related events. This takes us out to about day 5 or so. We'll just advance it to day 5. And look, it kind of mills around. Interesting. And then you get another system that develops here. And on it goes. Then you can start to see what's happening over here. So we'll shift gears to the Atlantic side. All right? Again, this is the same level of the atmosphere, 5,000 feet up, 850 millibars, the vorticity signature. This is the initial map where we get our players on the field. What are they? There's 97. There's Genevieve. 98. Somewhere in here, just a large chunk of energy that has to bundle. But it will. You'll see. So these are the areas to watch. This is the initial map. Now let's watch what happens. And we'll point out some interesting things. 24 hours out, there's 97 into the Eastern Caribbean. Large area of high pressure right here. The trophiness still over on the western part of the Atlantic. So as an example, if there was a hurricane right here at this juncture, it would feel this weakness and go up and out. Okay? This trough is definitely there for the time being, and I've seen people already talking about, well, maybe this nice weather that, and this is fine. It's not. I'm not besmirching them. I'm just making you understand. You say today, very nice weather compared to what we've had. It's still muggy outside. yes, we've had some nice weather come into the east. It's not as bad outside. The trough, this general troughiness over here in the western Atlantic, the heights are lower, all that good stuff. Yes, that's a good thing, but it's not going to stick around. This is not permanent. All right, so that's what you have to keep in mind. It's not where we are today, it's where we're going. And watch how this evolves. So that's 24 hours. Here's 36 to 48. And already, notice what's happening. The western side of that ridge is starting to build back in. There's the trough starting to lift out as the energy fades away. 97L is in the Central Caribbean. 98L, whatever it will be, over in the Atlantic here, south of this strong area of high pressure, moving along pretty briskly, and it looks like it's going to try to consolidate. By 72 hours, if this will go, there we are, more of the same. The ridging definitely starting to come back into the western Atlantic here. 97L right there, feeling the change of the pattern. There's 98. Probably at this point, I'm going to guess it's a depression by day 3. All right, just based on this, and of course we'll examine the euro in just a moment. All right, so that's 72 hours out. 96 hours, more progression of just about everything. Strong ridging here, keeping our systems moving along. There's 97 trying to develop. There's 98, probably a tropical storm, more energy coming off Africa. And look, it's still only August 21st. I mean, we still have 10 days left in the month, even when this is happening. That's incredible. I mean, we saw it coming. Finally on out to day 5, 120 hours, the GFS, that's what we're looking at, developing in the Northwest Caribbean, this system sitting over the Northeastern Caribbean, another system, large envelope of energy coming off Africa, GFS indicating some pretty solid ridging here across the Western Atlantic. Just looking at the GFS, what is your takeaway? First of all, don't worry too much about 97L, except that, and let me just go back to the satellite imagery here, it's a large area of cloudiness, showers, thunderstorms, already moving through portions of the Antilles, they're the Lesser Antilles, and that'll be the continued situation. Maybe some flooding rain, some of that even extends down to Trinidad and Tobago, so you're already getting impacts. As far as 97L developing quickly, no, I don't see that happening. Neither do the models, as you can clearly see. Later on, it tries to develop maybe as it goes past Jamaica. Keep an eye on it. Certainly maybe some heavy rain and some other impacts. And then it looks like it tries to get going once it reaches the Northwest Caribbean. What about 98? This one could develop quicker. More favorable conditions. I showed you the moisture that's associated with it. And as it approaches the islands, this will be critical. Does it go right through the islands here? And let's just change the domain of what we're looking at real quick to the Western Atlantic to kind of zoom in at that same time frame. We go back just a couple of frames here to 96 hours. It approaches, tries to cut through there. You know, it's hard to say. And we'll compare it to the euro in just a second. So maybe by day 5, between day 4 and 5, some impacts here for the islands. Anywhere from Guadeloupe, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Bart's, yeah, all that. I mean, just keep an eye on it. You don't need Mark to tell you that. It's the peak of hurricane season. Of course you're going to keep an eye on it. So we'll see what happens. We'll get a lot better handle on this once, and this is so important, a true center gets defined. Then the models will be able to track it a lot better. Right now it's a loosely organized area of energy, and there's a lot of uncertainty because of that. So please keep that in mind. All right, now let's take a look at the good old euro and what it shows. Same layer of the atmosphere, 5,000 feet up, but in this situation we don't get the benefit of every 3 hours or 6 hours, it's every 24. What are our players? Where are they? There's 97 right there. This is the energy associated with 98. Big old area of high pressure. All the energy up in the subtropics that led to that trough, or at least part of it over here. That's the troughing that I was telling you about. So let's move it forward. 1 day. Maybe. There we go. 24 hours out. Now, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern, the European is suggesting that the energy starts to come together south of this fairly entrenched ridge. There's 97L moving through the islands. You know, some rain, some gusty winds, that kind of thing. Let's move it out another 24 hours, 48 hours out. A little bit different here than what the GFS was showing, a little bit more of a northerly track with 98. You see 97 right in here. There's 98. And by this time, the Euro suggests in 48 hours, this will be a depression. 72 hours, definitely. In this situation, looking at just the Euro operational, and that's what this is called, the operational model, that would be a tropical depression, okay? Finally, at 96 hours, developed probably a storm. Here's our islands right here. And let's just switch the domain so we can get a better idea of what's what and where's where, shall we? All right, zoom in a little bit. So notice the difference here. The GFS at 96 hours is down here with the energy. The Euro focuses it early, so it gains a little bit more latitude sooner. And it's well to the north and east of the islands. Now, that's a big difference. It really is. And, you know, duh, right? And here's 97 moving through without much fanfare at 96 hours out. At 120 hours, 98, which would be a storm at this point, presumably, moving north of Puerto Rico and vicinity. And we'll just have to wait and see. Now, I know you're going to be, oh, come on, let's go beyond that. I can't. It's no day 6, 7, 8. You can look at it all you like, but it's so far out in time. What's the point? It's just going to get people worried over nothing, perhaps. But what can we look at? We can see at day 5, it's right here. I mean, the GFS is all down here, and that's enough of a spread. You know, why even look farther out into time? Seriously. But what we can look at is the overall pattern. The ridge is trying to build in, you know, and you know the drill. This could come up. Does it get near the Bahamas? These are the things that we wait for later. So I'm only going to look at 5 days at a time. You know how to look at this stuff beyond that. But I caution you. You remember in Pulp Fiction when the character that Samuel L. Jackson played, I believe it was Jules, said to Vincent, John Travolta's character, if my answers frighten you, you should cease asking scary questions. Something like that. That applies here. If you go out and you look at 7, 8, 9, 10 days into the future, and those answers to your question of where it's going to be frighten you, then you don't understand the context, and you start to worry over something that's 10 days out, that's a week out. 5 days from now, so many things could be different. I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't help the conversation, and it's just a waste of time. So I'm putting that out there just so you know, all right? So, bottom line, you guys down in the islands, keep your eyes on it, both of them. And you see here, I mean, even the difference between the GFS and the Euro, well, with what happens with 97, pretty stark differences there. So, clearly, a lot to keep track of over the next few days, and we will do so. All right, so now let's move on to just something a little different. I want to talk about some of our projects. This is all related. If you want to tune out now, I understand. It's been nice having you tune in. We'll talk to you tomorrow. But everybody else, the Hurricane Highway, our new series, is now streaming publicly. Available, funded through crowdfunding on Patreon. Episode 2 now on YouTube. So check it out, the Hurricane Highway Episode 2. Next Play, that's what it's called. Episode 1's The First Miles. I will create a playlist on Friday once Episode 3 comes out. That's all about Hurricane Barry last year and some other storms and hurricanes that, you know, are in the past. And once that comes out on Friday on YouTube, I'll create a playlist and we'll start to grow that. All of these are available on Patreon. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Speaking of the Hurricane Highway, we do have our Hurricane Highway official t-shirt. Trying to sell 100 t-shirts. And with 25,000 almost YouTube subscribers, you would think this would not be too hard. The front of it's the logo, the back of it, and it's also in that ice gray. And we do have it in white, the back of the shirt. looks like a rock star, like, you know, you go see a band and it's got all the tour cities and the dates and everything. Same kind of deal. I call it the U.S. Tour, 1996 through 2019. All the tropical storms and hurricanes that make up the metaphorical and very literal Hurricane Highway. It's on Custom Ink, and there's a little, you know, this is what it's all about. I embedded the first episode about this whole Hurricane Highway phenomenon. So I'll put the link to it in today's video description. All right? Also, very, very important, and I'm getting ready to put together a new video all about Patreon, so you totally understand it in case you've been wondering. But this is it. This is the time of year where becoming a patron really does help you out. Whether you're at the dollar level, maybe that's all you can afford. I understand it. This is a very different time in our lives, all of us. All the way up to $25 and beyond. There's different benefits for the different tiers. But the bottom line is you get access to something that's truly unique, very innovative, and we're all in it together. This is not a subscription or a membership, even though it says membership. You know, I want to scratch that out. Yes, you're a member of the club, but I want you to think of it more as a co-op, a cooperative of like-minded people who are funding the future of this project that includes, I'm getting ready to make this available on the 20th. You ready for this? Our brand new, interactive, I don't even know what to call it, like the ultimate tracking map. I don't want to have like gimmicky names, HurricaneTrack or whatever. But thanks to a couple of our supporters, 2 or 3 of them now, collaborating together, my good friend Jason, who I've known for most of my life, William, one of our patrons over in the UK, Howard, another one of our supporters from Bermuda, all of us have worked together to create the ultimate tracking map. And this is just the beginning. And you might look at it and go, okay, it's a tracking map. Nice. You have a relief map as the background. Big whoop. Well, check it out. It's zoomable. It's interactive. You can click on what's going on. And all this is, fairly typical of any good tracking map. I get that. What's unique about ours are the layers, right? We talk about layers of the atmosphere. And as a geographer, I wanted an ultimate end-all tracking map, and we now have it exclusively for our crowdfunding supporters, and this is it. You can change the map background, that's pretty common, no big deal, it's cool, I like it. But then you can start to populate it with our assets, our cameras. This just gives you an idea, this little demonstration right now. We have 2 permanent cameras down in the Virgin Islands, hosted by 2 of our patrons. This one is over in St. Thomas. Unbelievable. I mean, William, Will, Howard, his input, Jason, everybody working together to take my ideas. I said, guys, can we do this? And here it is. You click off of it, and you can go and say, well, what's going on over in St. John? And there it is. Imagine when we're activating numerous cameras along the coast for a hurricane landfall in Florida or the Carolinas or whatever. This is our permanent camera up in Rodanthe. These are permanent cameras here. I think this one's turned off. Yeah, the owner of the house is there and he wants some privacy, so he turned it off. We even got one out here in Nevada to keep an eye on the desert, the monsoon. That's what 110 degrees looks like. I should put a thermometer there like they have at Death Valley. Seriously, though, this tracking map, imagine a big hurricane coming into the Gulf Coast, and we're going to put assets out all along here to capture that hurricane. Those camera icons would be there, and I love the little icons that Will selected for the weather stations. There we go. Weather stations are indicated by little thermometers. This is one that was from Ocean Isle Beach, from Isaias. Instant weather data, and this is all just the beginning. You can turn these layers on and off, etc., so forth and so on. We're going to add radar links and much more to come, almost like a GIS or Geographic Information Systems type map, the ultimate tracking map from the ultimate group of people. That is what you get at the $10 level and up. It's included with all the cameras, everything else. And, the $25 level, read about it. You can get your name in the end credits of our videos, our future episodes of the Hurricane Highway, and even more. But that's what we're doing. That's the power of crowdfunding and what we're doing with it. So now more than ever, if you want to sign up, I'm telling you, there's nothing like this. It goes beyond what you see on television in ways that you can't even imagine unless you're part of it. And if you already are part of it, and I thank you for getting us to where we are today. All right, so that's how we fund what we do. Yes, but it's also an incredible way to provide you with the best of our technology, our innovation, and educate you at the same time. Keep you aware, and hopefully at the end of the day, keep you safe. Because you are the most important asset I've got. Without you, there's no reason for me to be here. All right? As always, Mondays go a long time. Tomorrow won't be as long, I promise. But we had a lot to cover today. Starting Thursday, I will have these videos twice a day. And they will be much more focused, very task-oriented. Here's what's happening. Here's what we think is going to happen. Here's what you need to do about it. I'll have a morning video discussion and an afternoon video discussion, and maybe even an evening video discussion if things start to get really crazy. And we all got to work together here. Keep our cool, keep our collective calm. It's a lot of information coming at you. The hurricane season's building up. It's going to be busy. But just remember this one important thing. You have control over your destiny. Instead of sitting back and being filled with despair, woe is me, the hurricanes are coming, I'm screwed. Please do not think of it. It's all about positive mental attitude. We know they're coming. We have advance notice. We can take action to save our lives, and we can deal with the property later. I know that's easier said than done. Believe me, I understand that. But, thinking that you're helpless, that's not the way to approach this. We have control over our actions. And your first action by listening to me is a step in the right direction, if I may say so myself. All right? All right. Thanks for joining me as always. Don't forget I'm on Twitter and YouTube, of course. I will be uploading these to Facebook going forward as well, trying to stay on top of that. And again, we are supported by our crowdfunding partners via the ever awesome Patreon, allowing us to do more than I could have ever imagined in literally just a few short years that we've been with Patreon. Wow. All right, so a big thanks to you guys. Have a great rest of your Monday. Again, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. We will reconvene tomorrow.